Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Switch to Life. And in today's video, we are going to be reviewing the latest Disney live action remake, that of course being Lilo and Stitch. And I'm very surprised to say this, but Disney delivered. They actually gave us a good live action remake that I might argue could be better than the original one. Granted, I also don't really like saying this. This film also seems to be getting a bit of backlash and praise at the same time. The critics are kind of mixed. The main reason, the movie changed so much. It's like the movie is completely different because it changed so much from the original. In my opinion, that actually makes it good. In other people's opinion, it makes it bad and super unfaithful. But again, this is my review, so we're going to call this a good movie. Though, again, critics and audience are divided by this. So, first off, we need to talk about the movie as well as how it looks. Honestly, the cinematography is pretty good. I will admit that. Then, of course, there's also the CGI that they used. I love the character designs, mostly because they're faithful to the original. I mean, you got Stitch. He's exactly like his animated counterpart, except this time, actually fluffy. And while at first it was jarring to see him in the new animation style, now it's like we love the guy because it's exactly what he's supposed to look like, just realistic, and that's really cool. Then of course there's the other aliens in this movie, which are really good and definitely faithful to the original. First you got Pleakley, who looks a little bit more slimy. I don't know, like, it's just the way that he shines, I guess. But honestly, he's very faithful, and I really love that. I also like the voice actor that they got for Pleakley. He's, well, maybe not the voice actor, just the actor in general, because apparently in this live-action remake, Jumba and Pleakley actually don human disguises, like they use cloaking technology to make themselves look like humans. Unfortunately, that means we don't get to see any funny-looking aliens who are dressed up as humans, and of course, we also don't get to see Pleakley in his cross-dressing. In fact, the director actually said he's sorry to the fans that Disney decided to forego the cross-dressing references, and I feel sorry that Disney decided to avoid that because it just makes it so much more funny with Pleakley's character. Instead, they just lost his whole aspect of his fashion design. Then again, he does still like clothes and hangers and stuff like that. He just makes it more about being a male fashion model than a female fashion model. Then there's Jumba, who I will admit I love his animation design as well as his live action counterpart. He is super cool, and while he does have a bit more hair compared to his animated version, it's still really good. My one complaint, however, is his voice. The voice, or should I say the actor that they got to play him, while he's good in live action, is bad in animated. You look at Jumba, and it sounds nothing like him. They lost his deep voice accent. Instead, they got a high-pitched mad scientist, and it just sucks. But then, of course, there's the Grand Councilwoman, who, in my opinion, is way better in this movie than she ever was in the animated universe, because she has a lot more personality with her. She also makes a lot of super fun jokes, and of course, she's just really cool in general. But with that in mind, I do have to talk about the casting choices for this movie. First off, I'm going to admit it, most of the cast is really good, especially with Chris Sanders coming back to play Stitch. I'm so happy about that because, well, now they don't have to worry about him sounding different than his animated version. He sounds exactly the same, and that's really good. Combine that with the fact that he looks the same, just a different form of animation, and it's still really nice. Then, of course, there's the human actors, including Lilo. She looks and feels exactly like Lilo. There's also Nani's actor, who does a really good job at portraying the character in live action. and they made the right casting decision. Then, of course, there's Pleakley, who I admit I really loved his design. I loved his live-action human counterpart, and I loved his voice. Jumba, as I already said, I hate his voice, but I do love his human counterpart, so there's that. Also, Cobra Bubbles is back, and he has a really good live-action actor. Sad it's not Ving Rhames, but still. Also, Cobra Bubbles isn't actually a social worker in this movie. He's still working for the CIA, and during the middle of the movie, he goes undercover as the director of social services. But instead, throughout the movie, we see an actual social worker come, and that's Mrs. Kekoya, who is actually portrayed by Nani's voice actor from the original movie. That's a really fun reference, and I think she did an amazing job at showing her character and how much she actually cares about Lilo and her well-being, and she's also trying to give Nani a fair shot at taking care of Lilo, even though it's clear she doesn't think that Nani has what it takes to be a guardian. And now we have to talk about what is different from the animated version than the live-action version, and is it good or bad? Honestly, I would say mostly good. The live-action version, in my opinion, is superior to the animated one. Now, I will admit that the animated version does have some qualities that the live-action doesn't. For instance, character expressions. They're super funny and quirky in the animated one, and while they're in the live-action one, which I'm glad that they managed to keep the heart of the original, unlike the Lion King live-action remake, I still say the animated one had better expressions. Then, of course, there's the music, which is good in both cases. The animated version is good, the live-action version just revamped the originals and made it good, and there's also some new music as well for the background design, and I really love that. However, I do have one complaint. Where is Stitch dressed as Elvis? He does not show up in this movie, which is very disappointing. And now we have to talk about spoilers, because there's one big difference that will either make or break this movie for you. There's also another one I want to mention, but we'll talk about that later. Captain Gantu is not in the live-action remake at all. Instead, they replaced him with Jumba. Yeah, apparently Jumba is going to be the main villain in the live-action remake. And I don't really know how I feel about this. On the one hand, Captain Gantu felt kind of like an afterthought in the original. They wanted a villain, like they needed a villain to fill in the gap, and thus Captain Gantu was born. He felt like an afterthought to me. Then, of course, in the live-action version, they got rid of Captain Gantu and decided to make Jumba the villain, which, again, made it so that there wasn't an unnecessary character. However, we did lose a couple things, like Captain Gantu. As much as I criticize his character for being an afterthought, in later installments, he's actually a really good character that I feel sorry for, and I'm just very sad that he's gone. But even worse is the relationship between Jumba and Stitch. In the animated version, even though Jumba did try to hunt and capture Stitch, now Jumba is trying to kill Stitch and turn him into Experiment 627, and it just sucks because that means that we lost that father-son, or I guess I should say creator-experiment relationship between Jumba and Stitch. You could tell that in the animated version, there's a real bond between them, and well, it's lost in the live-action version in favor of making Jumba an evil, like actually evil scientist. And that's just really sad to me. But as I said before, in the original version, they needed a villain and Captain Gantu filled that role. Now they just got rid of an unnecessary character and replaced him, and in my opinion, that actually makes it good. It also made it so that when you go to the movie theater, you're not expecting a shot-for-shot remake because there's some twists and turns that aren't in the original, and that's really good. For instance, there's a lot of fun ideas that they put into concept that just adds to the emotion ocean. For instance, Stitch is more destructive in this movie than in the original. Like, before he meets Lilo, we actually get to see him grow his love of coconut cake by causing a bit of mayhem for humanity, and then he ends up being captured and taken to a pound because he's just some wild animal. Well, they think that, but he's actually an alien experiment from outer space. There's also a few differences with Lilo. For instance, she's not as troublesome by not attacking Myrtle, but then again, she's also super troublesome because every time Nani goes to a job, both Stitch and Lilo are causing her to be fired from every single job she tries to get. Then, of course, there's also the ending where not only does Stitch go back for the family photo, which I really loved, but then I especially love the fact that Lilo was drowning at the bottom of the ocean because she was trapped by debris, and Stitch, he didn't even hesitate to go in and dive after her. And as we all know, Stitch is so heavy that he literally can't swim. He will just sink to the bottom, and this movie actually brought that up by making it so that Stitch just sinks to the bottom, and no matter what they do, they can't bring him to the surface. And instead, Nani literally has to walk across the seafloor carrying a drowning Stitch and make it so that they can get to shore in time. There's also the fact that Cobra Bubbles is not really a retired CIA agent. He's actually a current CIA agent that decides to go undercover as the director of the social services so that he can track down Stitch and determine if he's a threat to humanity or if he can actually live in peace with them. Also, we get to see how Lilo comes up with the name of Stitch, which is when Nani complains that she's gonna have to stitch up the car seat after Stitch destroys it. And, well, I like that because in the original version, the name Stitch kind of just came out of nowhere. So, yeah. What I really love, though, is that in the original version, Lilo was just complaining about Nani to social services and trying to get taken away, and that was weird for Lilo's character. Here in the live action, she's not trying to get taken away from Nani, but she does make a few mistakes here and there that prove she's a bit troublesome. And then there's also the fact that Nani is actually struggling to take care of Lilo. In the animated version, it looks like everything was under control. They definitely needed to find a job, but of course they were able to pay bills, insurance, and stuff like that. Here, Nani is struggling with that stuff in the live action. She can't even keep a fully stocked fridge, and she's trying to take care of Lilo as her guardian, but she just can't. And then, of course, there's the actual ending, which is definitely controversial if you ask a lot of people. So, with that in mind, in the animated version, Lilo, Stitch, and Nani all live together as one big happy ohana, with Jumba and Pleakley visiting as uncles, or I guess aunt in Pleakley's case. Here in the live action version, though, Nani is trying to be a guardian for Lilo, but in the end, Lilo says that she should join the Marines. And the reason she says that is because Nani wants to go to college so she can get a degree in marine biology and do something that she loves. She loves to be out on the ocean and surfing, and at one point in the movie, we actually see her become a surf instructor, which is really good if you ask me. But then she still ends the movie by leaving Lilo and going to college. And as we all know, Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind or forgotten. Well, Nani left Lilo behind. That's why people hate the ending of the live-action remake. But if you ask me, I think it's good. Not only does it change the script because you're not expecting it, but then there's also the fact that even though Nani went off to go live her dream, she still uses the portal gun, which was invented for the live-action remake, and well, she uses the portal gun to occasionally visit Lilo, and they still have their sister hang out, and that's really good. Also, I do love the fact that at the beginning of the movie, they talk about a constellation, and they mention Orion's belt, and how they made the three sisters. And, well, Stitch becomes the unofficial third sister, and I really love that, and it means their family is complete. Yes, Ohana means nobody gets left behind, behind, but it also means no one is forgotten. Nani never forgets Lilo, and we see that every time that she comes and visits Lilo using the portal gun afterward, and that's really cool. I also felt like Nani was just being underdeveloped. She was kind of just Lilo's caretaker and trying to be a good big sister in the animated version. But in the live action, we see her have her own hopes and dreams, and she's constantly putting them on the side so that she can take care of Lilo. And I really love that Lilo is still supportive of Nani and wants her to follow her dreams, even if it means that they don't live together anymore. So once their house is destroyed, thanks to Jumba attacking them and completely destroying it, they don't rebuild it in the live action remake. Instead, Lilo moves in with their next door neighbor, David, and his grandma, Tutu, who was played by Mrs. Hasegawa's voice actress from the original movie, which I found to be pretty cool. Also, David's voice actor from the original comes back, and he plays the hula instructor in charge of Lilo's dance class in this movie, which is also another cool detail. Now, I have to admit that they kind of butchered David's character. In the original, it's clear that both he and Nani have feelings for each other, but Nani is so concerned with Lilo that they're not dating, and that's kind of sad. But in this remake, David still has a crush on the girl next door, Nani, but Nani doesn't really have feelings for him. They still hang out as friends, but it's clear that she doesn't consider him a potential boyfriend, especially because he is a terrible flirter. But I really love how both David and Tutu care about Nani and Lilo. They want to inspire them to go after their dreams, and throughout the movie we see their care and devotion to them, especially when Tutu helps Lilo adopt Stitch, much to Nani's disgruntlement, which I found to be pretty good. In both the original and this movie, Nani is struggling a little bit financially, and well, I think that it's better that somebody else helped Lilo get a dog instead of Nani, because if Nani also had to take care of a dog on top of Lilo, I don't think she would ever go for that, even if it was to help Lilo get a friend. But now, thanks to Tutu providing Stitch, it just made the relationship between Stitch and Nani even better. Nani hates Stitch, and she wants to get rid of him. But by the end of the movie, she's willing to risk her life to save him, and that's really cool. Now, as I said before, at the end of the movie, Jumba ends up destroying Lilo and Nani's house, and instead of rebuilding it like in the animated version, they just decide to have Nani follow her dream to go to college, and Lilo will move in with their next door neighbor, Tutu and David. And I really love that because throughout the movie, we see the care that the two of them have for Lilo and Nani. And it's clear that Lilo is now in a loving family who can provide her with what she needs, and Nani will constantly visit her using the portal gun. So technically, even though Nani did leave Lilo behind, she never forgot her, and that's really good. So I really enjoyed this movie. During the first half, it was clear that they were copying the original. It wasn't really like scene for scene, it was beat for beat. They kept it original, even though they still had the same basic plot, and that's really good. Then they gave us a twist by turning Jumba into the main antagonist and making it so that Lilo would find out that the only reason that Stitch wanted to be adopted was because he wanted to use Lilo as a human shield. But since then, Stitch actually grew a real bond with Lilo, and I really love that. He sacrificed himself by leaving with Jumba so that Lilo could be safe. But again, what I loved is that they made Stitch confess to Lilo that he was just using her, and that's how their relationship started. But since then, it grew to something genuine, and he proved his loyalty by diving into the ocean and drowning to save her life, and that's really good. Oh, and in case you're wondering what happens to Jumba, he just gets arrested by the Galactic Federation at the end of the film and taken to prison. Unlike Pleakley, who decides to move in on Earth, Jumba doesn't get that luxury. Instead, he's just sentenced to prison and he loses his lab because it's destroyed. Now, if this was the animated Jumba, I'd feel sorry for him. But because this is the live action Jumba, who definitely had more of a villainous role in this movie, I think it's a fate that he deserves. Then, of course, there's Pleakley, who I'm really glad gets to live out his dream as an alien ambassador on Earth. And then Cobra Bubbles becomes the first human ambassador to represent Earth to the Galactic Council. So the Galactic Federation will keep checking in with Lilo and Stitch and making sure that Pleakley keeps them in check. And that's really good. So, with all that in mind, I really enjoyed this movie. Yes, it changed quite a bit from the original, but in my opinion, that just made it better because you didn't know what to expect during that second half. And they also changed the first half of the movie. Again, they didn't really copy it scene for scene, just beat for beat, and that's really good. They kept the heart and emotion of the original, despite the fact that they completely flipped the script, and that's really cool. So, with that in mind, I would say that this is a successful remake and deserves its spot as the biggest opener of a Memorial Day weekend in quite a long time. And what I really love is that this movie got a lot of profit during its first weekend. And you know what's crazy? Disney spent $270 million to make Snow White, and they only got $240 back during the entire theatrical run. Well, Disney spent $100 million to make this movie because it was supposed to be a Disney Plus original film. But after seeing how good it was, I guess the Disney executives decided to send it to theaters, and that's a good thing because just 4 days in, it's already made over $340 million. I mean, that's crazy, right? They made it so cheap, and yet they're getting so much profit compared to the more expensive film that they made. Also, it beat the entire gross of the animated version, but I'm blaming that more on inflation than anything. So, I guess that should tell Disney something. We don't really care about expensive films with high CGI quality. We just want good films with heart and soul put into them. Now, I'm glad that Disney halted production on most of their live-action remake projects because now, thanks to Lilo and Stitch, they can realize we need to make something with heart and soul, either that or something that's actually a profitable brand. Like Lilo and Stitch merchandise has been selling decades after the original film came out. So, with that in mind, if I had to choose a version of Lilo and Stitch for you guys to watch, which would it be? I would definitely say the live action one. It's really good and I highly recommend it. But with that in mind, go check out the animated one too, because the two films are super different. Even though they have the same generic plot, the way they get about that is still really different from each other. And it's like watching two separate movies, and that's really cool. But with all of that in mind, what do you guys think? Make sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. Did you like the live action remake or do you hate all of the changes that they made? Be sure to check out my membership program if you want to support the channel, or you can just do the free option and subscribe. But with all of that in mind, I hope that you're staying safe out there, and I will see you all in my next video. And as they say in Hawaii, aloha or bye-bye.
I'm gonna give you to the count of 3, Stitch.
Oh,
1.